Hello, everyone, and welcome to 2020. It's Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It, and the new year is upon us. And in that, I had a YouTube subscriber ask me what were some of the films that I was looking forward to in 2020, and I think no better time than now to tell you my top 5 anticipated films for 2020 after the jump. Real quick, if you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. We are climbing up that road to 100. So once we get there, we'll start doing some games, some fun stuff, having some fun up in the channel. So share, let everybody know about the spot, all right? Now on to my top 5. So there's no big Star Wars films. Disney seems to be taking a break from the repeat stuff. So you got Onward and Soul like coming out with original content. Who the fuck? And their only live action one is Mulan. So this is a weird year in that a lot of the things that I'm looking forward to don't quite fit into massive franchise fare, but still there are a couple on here that are like definitely ring my bell. Number 5 is a brand new IP from Fox / Disney, starring Ryan Reynolds, called Free Guy. The trailers for that have just started dropping. Comes out 4th of July area. The trailer looks fun. It looks inventive. It reminds me a little bit of like what happens if Ready Player One met Last Action Hero, and you kind of were in a real life, lived in version of a open world video game. I'm a huge sucker for open world video games. I'm a huge sucker for Ryan Reynolds and Taika Waititi. And I like the concept of that this movie gives off. It feels inventive, it feels fresh, it feels new. And while I did not like Ready Player One as much as some, because I'm a huge fan of the book, and the book to the movie, they feel like ideas were used for both, but not the exact same thing. This, because I don't have any preconceived notion of what I'm getting into, I'm a little bit more open to seeing what they're bringing me and giving me. So that's my number 5. Okay, so my number 4 is a movie called Dune. I am a huge sci-fi fan, and I like this director a lot. He did Blade Runner 2049, he did Sicario, and he did Arrival, which were all stunningly beautiful films. So if there's anybody who's going to knock out a sci-fi film, it's going to be Denis. I can't say his last name, Denis Villeneuve. Cast is nuts. Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Rebecca Ferguson, Oscar Isaac, Dave Bautista, who was in Blade Runner for a little bit too. I am a sucker for sci-fi. Good sci-fi is great. Amazing sci-fi might actually get me to marry you. Sorry, honey. I think sci-fi, every genre, and everybody's going to say one genre does a better job. I think sci-fi is a great genre of taking some themes, political or otherwise, and presenting them in a new form and making people kind of break down their barriers that they naturally have and seeing it in a different light. And you do that when you put in some cool laser ships and gunfights. Who doesn't like that, right? So Dune is way up there as one of my most anticipated films of 2020. Number 3, for a couple of reasons. Because it's his last time at bat. Because this movie has gone through a lot of turmoil as far as him getting hurt on set and moving it on. But it's going to be Daniel Craig's last time as James Bond in No Time to Die. I'm excited. I get excited for every Bond film, but I can safely say, even though I've grown up where I've had multiple Bonds through my lifetime, where I could actively first remember a Bond was Timothy Dalton, but he had rated R1, so I couldn't quite see it. So my first time actively going to see a theater for Bond was Pierce Brosnan GoldenEye, and I loved it. And Tomorrow Never Dies I liked a lot, but then they started getting silly. So I can safely say that in my lifetime, Daniel Craig is my James Bond, and I'm sure I'll have different versions of that as we go along. Maybe Idris, maybe a woman. I know you guys are freaking out about that one. But I am excited to see this version because I think Daniel Craig's films are about 50-50, and I hope, but his 50% are some of the highest Bonds ever. Like I think Casino Royale and Spectre, I'm sorry, not Spectre, Casino Royale and Skyfall are amazing films. Easily my top two of my top 3 Bond films, with GoldenEye being my third figure out the order. But I also think Spectre is one of the worst films. I hate that movie so much. Quantum, I don't have that much of an issue with, especially when you watch it back to back with Casino Royale. It feels more like a complete film. When it's a standalone film, it doesn't. It gets a little wonky. It's not as strong. But I think overall, Daniel Craig has done a fantastic job as Bond, and I'm excited to see his last foray into it. I'm excited to see what this female-ish 007 that's been taking over in his stead has done. So I'm excited a lot about everything that the Bond, and I'm curious that this is a film that is coming out while Dune's coming out. I didn't mention the date. Dune's coming out in December, around closer to Christmas. This is coming out in April, so this is a little bit of an earlier release than we typically get for Bond. It's usually Bonds have either been a summer fair or like that Thanksgiving Day weekend. So, but this was going to be that, but it got delayed. So they put it where they could. So we'll see how a Bond film does in the top of the year before we get to the summer stuff. Number two, and the only reason this is number one, when you see it, you'll understand. Number two, I am a huge fan of this franchise. I remember popping this VHS in over and over and over as a child. I remember watching the animated cartoon consistently, both of them, the real and the not real, and then there was an extreme version of them. Video games, I had proton packs and traps, played every video game that I could play, board games. Ghostbusters is ingrained in my DNA. I loved it. I've seen, even though the Ghostbusters 2 was not as good as Ghostbusters 1, saw that theater about 3 times. Vigo freaked me out. I think this film, just the trailer I saw, actually gave me goosebumps, made hairs on my arms rise. It felt more in line with what I know Ghostbusters to be, which I think Ghostbusters 1 and 2, 1 especially, was more of a horror drama that had comedic elements in it. And I think that's the tone that you have to kind of take, where the comedy came out of the situations that people were in. Whereas I think the misstep that the all-female Ghostbusters took was not having an all-ladies Ghostbusters. There's 2, actually. The 2 missteps they took was, 1, not connecting to the universe. I think that's a terrible idea to do in this day and age when connecting to your universe gives you just an added bonus. But 2, I think the biggest problem with that film is that the tone of it plays more like a Saturday morning Scooby-Doo cartoon than it does the world that we have with Ghostbusters. And so you got the ladies doing 4 different versions of comedy. There is no straight person in that movie. You have 4 different versions of comedy in one movie, and then Chris Hemsworth doing his version of comedy. So Melissa's doing slapstick, bouncing all over the place with a proton pack. You've never seen any of that in any of the movies. You got Kristen Wiig just being odd and kooky and just, it's not even like scientific. Got Melissa McCarthy also talking about wontons the whole time. You got Leslie Jones being angry, loud, which is a bit stereotypical. And then you have McKinnon being great, but being just the weirdo, the oddball, saying weird stuff. And so they're all doing 4 different versions of comedy. And none of the scares work because, 1, none of it's practical, it's all CGI. So it just doesn't get the tone of what I think that trailer did in 2 minutes, what that entire movie could not have done. And so while I went to the theaters on opening weekend to see the All Lady Ghostbusters because I'm a Ghostbusters fan, I left feeling disappointed. And for a movie to turn around this quick, and it was like, okay, cool, we know you guys didn't like that. Let's try this again, but let's go back more in line with what we think works and what worked with the originals. I think they're sticking it. That first poster looks stunning. Everything that they're doing for this movie feels more in line with where I am with Ghostbusters, and I've already got my new Ghostbusters shirts. I bought some Ghostbusters high top shoes. Like, I'm ready. Like, I'm going to be there day one. This for me, and what this feels like, and how much I love for Ghostbusters, and just what this does. And plus, it's Paul Rudd, but what this does for me is what some people have attachment for Star Trek, or some people have for Star Wars, and I have attachment for all of those as well. This for me beats those. And so this was my most anticipated movie of 2020 until number one, which dropped a trailer. Christopher Nolan, you're out your damn mind, and I love you for it. The trailer for Tenet dropped. Tenet dropped about a week ago. Did a reaction. It's done pretty well on the channel. Thank you guys. But my God, that thing looked nuts, and I'm in for anything that Christopher Nolan does. Christopher Nolan could literally just film my backyard in an IMAX camera upside down and making the leads go backwards. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna watch that. I also had the luxury of seeing Star Wars in an IMAX, and I saw the 8-minute prologue. Probably a disservice to the actual Star Wars movie because that 8-minute prologue was bananas and just got me even more amped for seeing that. I love that cast. I love that director. I love that Han score just like beating me over the face. I'm seeing this in IMAX and I'm seeing it in day one. It's certain directors. For me, Christopher Nolan, even if I don't like all of the films, like love all of the films, I like the chances he takes. I like the way he shoots, and it's always going to be an interesting thing to discuss. And for that, Tenet is dead smack number one. And I'm also glad that John David Washington is getting a shot to be a lead with Robert Pattinson. I think people are now going to start seeing Robert in a different light after Lighthouse, which was great, and this film. He's starting to build up a resume so that by the time Batman comes, people should get that Twilight stuff out of their head. But for those asking, those are the top 5 films that I am anticipating in the year 2020. There's going to be more. I'm sure there's going to be stuff that, like some smaller films, some stuff that like Clint Eastwood just all of a sudden comes out of nowhere. Like I directed something 3 weeks ago, so here it is. There are always going to be those surprise films, but those are the ones that have been on the docket, have had shown some stuff, or like with Dune, which is a little further out. It's not showing anything, but I know it's there, and I know you're coming. But those are mine. What are your top films that you are looking forward to in the year 2020? Go ahead and leave your comments in the comments below. If you haven't, hit us up on email at hollywoodalreadydidit@gmail.com, or you can find us on Twitter at hollywoodadi. We also have a podcast with the same name that is on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere that plays podcasts. We are there. The last episode that we've done was for Rise of Skywalker. We are on a bit of a hiatus until everybody gets back together for the new year. But like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.